In the latest patch, Druids have gone from, well, they're still kind of down here, but we play them because we love them. Stormclaw is probably going to be pretty strong. Ain't nobody care about Thorn. All this and more in the patch notes in this video. Stay tuned for all the info if you'd like some actual reasons why. Welcome back. Today we're going to jump into the Diablo 4 patch notes leading up to Season 3. This is going to be Season of the Construct, and it will launch on January 23rd. Just a few days from now. Let's go ahead and jump into things that affect all classes right away, but we'll talk about how they specifically affect Druids. First two items here are very interesting in my opinion. Paingorger's Gauntlets are going to have a non-basic skill mark enemies, and then when you use a basic skill, it's going to increase damage. So keep that in mind. Let's talk about the aspect as well, and then we'll group them together. Aspect of adaptability. Below 50% maximum resource, basic skills will generate additional resource, and when above 50% maximum resource, basic skills will deal increased damage. I actually think both of these items, or the item and aspect together, are going to work really well for Stormclaw, to tell you the truth. You're going to be able to use a non-basic skill, say Petrify, to freeze everything, and then you can start attacking them for additional damage that's going to echo to all the marked enemies around them. Since Petrify is going to hit virtually everything on the screen, this will be a large AoE. Aspect of adaptability, below 50% maximum resource. So you would need something to spend on Stormclaw or a similar build to get you below that 50% point in order for it to generate additional resource. However, you don't necessarily have to drop below that halfway point to gain additional resource. You could just always be above 50% maximum resource and get the benefit of the 40 to 80% multiplicative damage. Overall, I think Stormclaw is going to be very strong. Do I think that Druid is going to shift from its current place on the food chain to all the way to the top? No, unfortunately I do not. I think Druid is still going to be a class that you play simply because you love or enjoy playing that class. Next up, we have Juggernaut's aspect, and this is going to allow you to gain armor. However, your evade cooldown is going to be increased. Do I think this is going to have much use on Druid? Not necessarily. I would love to be pleasantly surprised, but I think evade is really important for Druid, especially if you're playing some of the melee or close range builds that have been popular and strong for Druid in the recent season. Item updates, and here we have Ring of Starless Skies. Now, this did see a fair amount of use in pulverized builds towards the end of the season if you were lucky or fortunate enough to get one of these rings. Essentially, most of this is going to remain the same, just some of the modifiers have been altered. You can use core skills, you're going to get some additional damage from it and reduction in the core skill cost. Unfortunately, I'm not sure pulverized will be super strong. With Vampiric Powers, it actually got an additional overpower chance, which kind of allowed Pulverize to do its thing, right? The more times or more often you overpower, the better Pulverize was. So it's going to lose a little bit of that output just from not having Vampiric Powers, since Season of the Construct is going to essentially give us a companion rather than buffing our own character. Another thing to keep in mind with Druid builds this season, if you're interested in participating in the Gauntlet, you're probably going to want something that's mobile. Now, we don't know that for certain at this point, but it seems that if these things are timed, or the events themselves, you're going to want a mobile and quick build, and unfortunately, I'm not sure Pulverize fits into that. Melted Heart of Salig does see some changes. This was not real popular with Druids, although it did see a lot of use on other classes. You can read over the change yourself. I'm not sure this is going to work into any particular builds. Again, love to be wrong with that. Just like seeing use for everything where it can. Overpower attacks are now going to gain 1% damage, down from 2%, essentially a nerf. Another reason that I don't think Pulverize will be quite as strong. Onto new items specifically for Druids. Now we have Unsung Aesthetics Wraps. Lightning Storm is going to gain 1 additional strike each time it grows. I think this is pretty cool. Lightning Storm critical strikes are also going to strike twice, dealing 10 to 20% increased damage. Just a great item in my opinion. This will definitely see use for those particular builds. Again, we need to see how these gauntlets play out if that's something you're interested in. Lightning Storm is typically a build that hits enemies from nearly off the screen or even off the screen at times. However, it's stationary while it's casting, so if you're looking to get the best clear speed in something that we need to go from one end to another, Lightning Storm probably not going to be the front runner. However, if you're standing in an arena and all the enemies come to you and you simply just have to take them out, Lightning Storm could be incredibly powerful for that. Virulent aspect, and when Rabies infects an enemy, it's going to reduce the cooldown. The cooldown reduction is tripled when infecting elites, so this will allow you to spam Rabies more frequently. Rabies typically hasn't been used too much since basically the very beginning of the game. It's be interesting if this allows it to get some more use. Arriving at the Druid skills themselves, and these are basically all buffs. In fact, I don't recall a single nerf, but let's go ahead and double check that to be sure. Rabies is going to get a maximum damage bonus increase. Again, not a typically highly used skill. Lacerate is going to have its cooldown reduced from 45 to 35 seconds. This is an interesting one to me. Lacerate actually provides immunity while you're using the Lacerate ability. This could see a lot of use if survivability is a problem in the Gauntlet, potentially if you're looking to kill something like Uber Lilith. Prime Lacerate, again sticking with Lacerate perhaps being a choice for this particular season. We're going to get additional healing from this, increased to 6% on critical strikes. This could be very strong, especially since Vampiric Powers in Season 2 provided a lot of healing if you chose to put them in your build. Cataclysm just sees a massive buff, really. Twister damage is essentially doubled. Lightning damage is increased from 77 to 95%. Both sizable increases, and Cataclysm was a pretty strong skill before. Supreme Cataclysm as well, increasing vulnerable damage or duration to 6 seconds. That's double the duration time, and 3 seconds is fairly lengthy. in order for you to capitalize on that vulnerability. So 6 seconds is basically going to ensure that you're able to do that. Passives. Additional healing from mending is going to be increased to 6%. I think this is basically going to be necessary if I had to venture a guess, and that's because druids are really going to need the sustain in order to participate in the end game without the vampiric powers that we relied on so heavy for the sustain and self-healing they provided. The guide will now grant increased fortify per rank. I think this is a great change as well. Unrestrained. Control impairing effects duration reduction increased from 3% to 5% per rank. This is a buff as well. Increased benefit while over 50% fortify reduced from triple to double. And that's actually a nerf, so we kind of see a buff and a nerf on this particular talent. Whether or not this would still be worth taking will be seen. Natural fortitude and the fortify you gain when shapeshifting has been increased. I really like this change just because I feel like the true nature of the druid is to shift around between forms, not necessarily be in one form all the time, although I'm sure most everybody has played a build like that. Bestial Rampage also getting a buff. Required shapeshift duration reduced down to 2 seconds and attack speed bonus increased. So again, if you're shifting, you can take better advantage of getting these benefits or these buffs. I'd like to see that change as well. Spirit Boon seeing 3 buffs as well. Thorns damage has been increased. Overall, just nice to have, although I'm not sure anything's really going to use that, but time will tell this season. Gift of the Stag, maximum spirit increased from 10 to 20. Again, just another buff for builds that use high spirit pools. Avian Wrath, critical strike damage is now multiplicative instead of additive, and I think this is probably going to be taken by just about every build out there. Paragon Trees seeing a trio of buffs as well. Tectonic is going to have bonus lucky hit chance increased to 20%. That's going to be a large increase. Poise Barrier increased from 5 to 15% maximum health, very large. Duration also increased to 6 seconds. And Wild, passive companion damage bonus increased from 80% to 120%. That going to make your companions worth using? Not really, unless you're using them for something like a shred build where you're just benefiting from the multiplicative increases you get otherwise. Item updates, and this is the change that I'm most interested in. I just want to see how this plays out, and I'm definitely going to be testing a lot of things in this regard. Aspect of the Blurred Beast. While dashing, Shred seeks out nearby poisoned enemies, instantly dealing 70 to 100% of the poisoning damage to them. The new aspect, while dashing, Shred will seek out nearby poisoned enemies and deal 20 to 40 multiplicative increased damage to them. What really interests me about this is that you could have any amount of poison damage on them. So you could have just a small tiny poison ticking for say 10 damage per tick, but you can still instantly seek to them with the Shred and deal multiplicative damage. I'm wondering if you're going to be able to add a different type of damage source. Say physical just as an example, but you could potentially get away from say poison Shred and just have a different type of Shred build. It'd be very interesting to see how this works. Aspect of Metamorphic Stone, Boulder Spirit cost reduced from 50 to 40. This should allow you to get more boulders off, so it'd be interesting to see how much damage we can do with these builds. Aspect of the Unsatiated sees a pair of buffs as well with both spirit generation and bonus damage, while Aspect of Retaliation actually has the bonus damage reduced from 20 to 40 to 20 to 30%. It'd be interesting to see how all of these work together. Hope to see you in Season 3. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch, and have a great day.